again from Oregon Mesa. Let's see if there's some people. Let's see if some other people are going to join. All right. So for the students who are joining us, just say hi in the chat. Let me know that you're here, ready to go. Okay. All right, can everyone hear me okay? Okay. All right, I'm gonna get started. So today we have a STEM hero session, and we've invited Marcus Bullock, who is the founder and CEO of Flikshop. Just to review with you all, community guidelines are that this session is being recorded, so the audience video and audio features are off for now. Don't share your contact information in the chat because this is open for anybody who wants to join. And then send us questions through the Q&A tab. So go to the tab for Q&A, and that's how we know that you have a question for us. But you're welcome to chat with everyone in the chat tab. Say hello, tell us what your favorite thing about MESA is. All right, so, and yes, remember, no inappropriate content. Okay, so I'd like to introduce our speaker today. It is Marcus Bullock. Marcus is an entrepreneur, justice reform advocate, and public speaker. Following his 2004 release from prison and running a successful construction business, he launched Flikshop, which is an app that enables incarcerated people to receive personalized postcards from their families. He's building community and decreasing recidivism. I think you guys should ask Marcus, what is recidivism? Okay. He also founded the Flikshop School of Business, which is a program that teaches returning citizens life skills and entrepreneurship. Marcus has like an extremely impressive resume. I'm really excited to have him here. This is the second time he's spoken for MESA, but he spoke with, our community and adult partners before, and now he's speaking with our students. So we really appreciate having him here. And I'm going to turn over the floor to Marcus. Okay. All right. So Marcus, if you are able to, can you turn on your camera? Let's see. Okay, we're experiencing a little bit of tech difficulties, but we'll get that fixed. Marcus is still going to join us, but while Marcus is trying to log back in, I wanted to ask you all, what was your favorite part of yesterday's session? We really appreciate the feedback that you all gave us. There were a couple of you that commented that 3:30 is too early to start, that some of you are still in school or doing other clubs and programs. So we'll take that feedback for next time we do a week-long series of events. But this time we have to keep 3:30 for the rest of this week, just because all of our speakers have been told like 3:30 p.m. is the start time. Another thing is, even if you can't come directly at 3:30, you guys can join in whenever you want. So if you get out of class at 3:35, you want to get a snack, use the bathroom, relax a little bit and join in, you can always join in like halfway through or we're always welcome to have you. So Marcus is on camera now, so I am basically going to turn it over to him, and he will tell you, about who he is, where he's from, and how he built his business. So thank you for being here, Marcus.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to do a sound check. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear him. In the chat, can everybody hear him?
Let's make sure that everyone can hear clearly. Oh.
I see Robin Cousino says,
"Hey,
"Hi,
Robin."
Marcus."
It seems like awesome. I'm getting yeps and yes. Awesome. You guys can hear me clearly. I'm so excited to be able to balance, get through those the big marker issues with my audio. So I'm super pumped to be here. Bianca, thank you so much for that warm introduction. Thank you for even keeping the crowd going, you know what I mean, while I was trying to fight through camera things. I love when these kinds of real life things happen when we shoot it live, because it allows us to be able to experience some of our flaws. One of the things I'm going to talk about a lot tonight is some of my flaws, my failures. But I think that one of the things that I think that will make today magical for tonight, or at least get the meat and potatoes from a lot of this talk, is for me to be able to probably shut my mouth and get you guys the opportunity to be able to ask me questions. Now, here's the guide for the questions. Please, please feel comfortable, very comfortable, asking me any question that you would like, whether it be professional or personal. I think that too many times we try to separate ourselves, our entrepreneurial selves, my CEO self, from the real person who I am, who my cousins and my aunties and my wife and my children get to know. And then what happens is you guys don't get a chance to see the real authenticity of what it takes in order to be able to build a brand. One of the things you'll see consistently along my journey as I talked a little bit about, and I'll refresh for all of you guys who weren't there at the earlier MESA talk before. But I rely heavily on telling my authentic story about myself and my brand, but and to be able to give context to be able to guide the majority of the conversation that I think should be guided in Q&A. I'll give you guys some background of my story and my brand. So I'm hoping that works out for you guys. Please be sure to jump in the chat. I can't see your wonderful faces, so your comments, your laughter, your LOLs, your emojis, or I'm ready. I got a question. I need to jump one in. Make sure you get that into the Q&A as well. All right. So Bianca, is that cool? Can I jump straight in?
Yeah, you can. I remember I saw your email earlier. So most of the people joining us today did not see the MESA talks. So
awesome.
Yes. So it's completely new and mostly student audience.
Awesome. So what I'll do is I'm going to start at the end of this story. And I'll introduce myself of who I am today and how I ended up making it to this screen this evening. And then I'll tell you the context of why it's so important for me to be able to have these kinds of conversations. Again, I'm Marcus Bullock. I am the CEO and founder of Flikshop. That's Flikshop without any C in it. So all of you guys who like spelling champions, phonetically, leave it out. It's Flikshop, no C. And so I encourage you all to definitely, if you want to follow me, or start conversations or jump into the DMs to ask questions about your own personal journey, please follow me on Instagram at _Marcus_Bullock. I built the technology that helps families stay connected to their incarcerated loved ones. We knew that we wanted to be able to figure out how to keep families connected, because one of the conversations that we hear sweeping across the country right now, and a lot of people that the numbers and the staggering statistics of people that are going to prison, that live in prison, spend an incredible amount of time in prison. Some of them, like, why in the world are they still in prison? Young people going to jail in prison, immigration facilities detaining a ton of people that are coming across the borders. Then they're like, yo, we need to figure out a way to house them. And like we're all pulling ourselves out, wondering how we're going to end mass incarceration. And one of the ways that I want to help reduce recidivism, and I'm super excited to talk about that later, is to be able to keep families connected along the journey while they're incarcerated. I personally believe that if families stay together, the same way that you and I double tap on an Instagram or a Facebook post, or we swiping up looking at our family members' TikToks, the same ways that we engage with them and stay incorporated in their lives that way. I wanted to be able to make sure that the millions of people that are incarcerated around the globe also have that level of connectivity. So what we did was we built our first iteration of this technology that looked like a mobile application. It was a mobile app that we dropped. It's available in the app stores, but it allows our users to be able to take a picture, add some quick text, press send, and for 99 cents, we print and ship that picture and text on a real tangible postcard, and we ship it to any person in any prison, any jail, any facility, anywhere in the country. And it's interesting because now that we've connected over 170,000 families around the country, we shipped over 600,000 postcards into prisons all in every state in America. It's interesting to see the level of family connectivity that's starting to happen there. I mean, we get a chance to see photos going of somebody taking a picture of their meal that evening at dinner. Yo, what's up, Pops? I miss you so much. Yo, here's a picture of what I'm eating tonight. I remember when we used to sit down and eat fried chicken together, blah, blah. I've seen pictures of people taking pictures of their kids' first steps and saying, hey, I wanted you to be a part of this experience. And they putting it on a postcard the same way that they would use Instagram, but we're delivering it directly to people in prison. And it's been an incredible journey to be able to see that way. But one of the things I think that's very, very important to be able to give context of why I started this business is to let you know that I myself spent time inside of those prison walls thinking that my life was over. When I was 15 years old, back in 1996, my best friend and I, who was 16 at the time, we pull up on a guy sleeping in his car in a shopping mall parking lot, and we decide we're going to carjack this dude. We tap on the window, ask him, yo, get out the car. He gets out of the car because he was sleeping. My friend jumps in the driver's side. I jump in the passenger side. We speed on down the highway, and we end up getting all the way home. The next day, the genius children that we were, we decide we're going to take the stolen credit cards that we find in the man's wallet back to the mall the next day and go shopping with this man's stolen credit cards. The craziest decision I ever made in life. Because now I'm sitting at Macy's, I'm swiping the card. I ain't talking about we just swiping for a shirt or two. Like we swiping like Dora the Explorer, swiping, no swiping kind of swiping. And we rocking up everything that we can inside of the stores. And the last store was Macy's. And a dude with a security guard, he comes, hey, you kids, what are you guys doing? He gets a report, stolen credit card. When we see the security guard, we're like, oh, you're tripping. You ain't gonna catch me. I take off. All you hear is footsteps. Me and my boy, we running. We run out of the store. We run around cars. We hopping over fences. And the crazy thing of it is this security guy, he probably some, 40, 50-year-old man who hasn't ran and chased a 15-year-old in years. I'm like, I'm a sophomore in high school at the time, playing on the basketball team. I'm in shape. We gone. And so next thing I know, a few minutes later, we hear the helicopters. I'm like, oh, snap. My boy looks at me. I look at him. I'm like, yo, it's like we about to go down. Let's get our story together. Immediately, police come from out of nowhere. They football tackle us, wrestle us down to the ground, slap the handcuffs on us. And they're like, yo, where's the stolen car? We're like, oh, man. Little would I know, a few weeks later, I'll be standing in front of a judge facing a life sentence. And then just another couple of months later, I will be sitting in jail with my mom, my sister, grandmother, aunts, uncles, church family. They all sitting right behind me in the courtroom as they listen to a judge sentence me to 8 years in adult maximum security prisons. I'm 15 years old, sophomore in high school. We just about to hit Christmas break. My girl just promised me she was going to buy me a Kenneth Cole t-shirt that I was going to wear after the Christmas break was over with. I knew I was going to crush him right after coming out of homecoming. I was like this. I was a starting shooting guard on my basketball team. I mean, my life was centered around school. And now all of a sudden I got a new vocabulary words like consecutive and concurrent sentences. I got like use of a firearm and the commission of a felony. And like I'm hearing all of this stuff. And my reality of it is that I honestly didn't really understand what was happening. Like, I'm 15 years old and I'm locked up I'm in a jail. I got certified as an adult really, really swiftly. And they got me in a jail with everybody else. I'm like 15, everybody else is like 30, 40, 50 years old. And I'm in the middle of the pod like, yeah, y'all locked up, not me. Like, I'm literally going to come home and I'm going to figure out a way to be able to get back on the basketball team. Like, I don't know what some lawyer or prosecutor or judge is going to figure out that they made a mistake on my life. A few weeks go by, holidays go by. Next thing I know, 2 years is in. I'm 17, 18 years old. I'm 2 years in being in prison, and I'm still living in denial. It wasn't until I'm walking around a prison rec yard with my boy Danny B, and I'm talking to him. I'm like, yo, Danny, how long have you been locked up? And Danny B, he looks at me, and he's like, yeah, with a straight face. He's like, yeah, 31 years, and we still walking. My heart dropped down to my toes. I'm like, oh, I couldn't really emote. In my mind, I'm like, oh, but in my face, I'm like, okay, 31 years. And I'm like, yo, I'm having to wrestle with that moment. Like, if they would keep him here for 31 years, then that means that they would definitely keep me in for 8. So now I'm like, holy crap, I'm actually got to do 8 years in prison. I got 6 years left. My cell partner got life plus 43. My best friend has 74. The guy who I'm on a weight pile with, he has life. I'm like, yo, this is my new life now. Why am I still fighting for this new hope that I'm going to go home and play on some high school basketball team? Those days are over. My mom is like, I want you to hold on to the faith. I want you to hold on. And I'm like, Mom, I'm not trying to hold on to nothing. Like, you need to start grieving for me now. I don't even know what it's going to take in order for you to get over this, but just check this out. I got to do this rest of this time. I'm probably going to die in prison. I mean, this is what it is. Everybody I know got life in prison. Everybody I know has big numbers, and I literally knew that I was going to die there. That next Sunday, my mom, she jumps in the car, speeds down the road, comes to visit me in the prison visiting room, and she's like, boy, you done lost your mind if you think that I'm going to let you go to prison culture. You've lost your mind if you think that this is what the story is going to be like. And I'm like, Mom, what are you saying? Like, no, there's a life after this. There's a life after this prison sentence. You need to know that there's going to be something more. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at my mom, I'm like, you have all of this hope and all of this audacity, and you think that this is going to be a life that you can help control. Mom, you can't come in here and hug me and kiss on me and make me feel better. When you leave out of here and I go through those double clanking doors, they steal and they slam hard, and they're constant reminders of who I am and where I'm going to be for the next several years of my life. And there's nothing you can do to help me with this. My mom looks at me, she's like, all right, okay, whatever. I'm going to make you a promise today that I'm going to write you a letter, or I'm going to send you a picture every day from this day forward until you come home, so that you can be constantly reminded every day that there's a life after this. I'm like, all right, cool, Mom. I give her a big hug, give her a kiss. I appreciate you. I love you. It's time for me to go back, in a bang. I mean, I'm literally back in a bang. I'm on maximum securities. I'm a teenager. This is my future. My last grade completed is the 9th grade. This is it. Surely enough, my mom does exactly what she says. My mom takes a picture of the most randomest thing. She takes a picture of cheeseburgers. Hey, Marcus, here's a picture of a cheeseburger. One day you're going to enjoy your fat, juicy burger when you come home. She takes a picture of a mattress. Hey, Marcus, here's a picture of a mattress in a department store. One day you're going to sleep on a comfortable bed when you come home. And it's interesting. Oh, you guys got to excuse me if you can hear my dog in the background. My children just left out, and she wants to go out and play with the kids, and the kids are probably gone, so she'll be probably barking for a minute or two. But the crazy thing about this journey was that it allowed me to be able to see a massive need that was connected through what my mom did for me, and it saved my life. When I came home in 2004 and it was time for me to start this new life all over again, I was finally able to find a job at a paint store that gave me the opportunity to be able to see how I could broker deals between the painters of the world who wanted to paint living rooms and the Miss Johnsons of the world who wanted to paint their kitchens. I had just served several years in prison, and I was super happy to just work inside of a paint store, let alone see an opportunity to be able to start a painting business. I started a painting business, and after several years, my life just started to transform. I was able to connect all of these customers for $150, $250. I had just served all this time in prison, and now I'm like a painter. And before this, I didn't even know the difference between interior paint and exterior paint. And now all of a sudden, I think that I'm running the painting business. Eventually, this new life that I was living running as a painting contractor continued to grow, and I didn't realize it, but my friends, the same ones who I grew up with that would watch me receive all of this mail and these photos and these letters from my mom, the same mom that wanted to ensure that I saw life on the outside of it, they would call me and they'd be like, bro, do you remember when your mother used to send you those letters? You gotta send us pictures of this new world you're living in, man. Like, you're taking vacations, you're building a family. Like, I want to see this. And I knew that there had to been a solution for it because apps were starting to get big. It was 2012 by this time. I've been home for like 8 years. I download apps to help me get my coffee quicker. There's definitely an app for this. I mean, there were millions of people in prison. When I looked in the App Store and didn't see one, I was like, oh, snap. And I hustled up a whole bunch of money out of those painting gigs, and I Googled how to build a mobile app. That's when I was able to hire a small development team, build out some small technology on a couple of websites, and host what now was connecting families all around the country in ways just like my mom did for me when I thought my life was over inside of prison. The reason why I wanted to be able to give that story for context to help you guys understand how I built Flikshop and why, I mean, not how I built Flikshop, but why I built Flikshop, is because I think it's so important for us to be able to attack our entrepreneurial desires with passion in our eyes and meaningfulness inside of our hearts, because I think that then we build the real solutions and the real innovations that change the world. Now, I'm super pumped today to have one of the most impactful apps inside of your app store that are connecting families inside of jails and prisons all around the country. And some of you guys may know someone that's incarcerated, so I hope that you'll give Flikshop a try and download our app. But as you guys continue to build out your goals, I want to be able to make sure that you understand, like, if I can do it coming out of a prison cell, then I know 100% sure with you guys starting in a path that is incredible, you can do it too. So I'll stop right there. I'll shut up a little bit, and I'll jump in to allow you guys to ask me any questions.
Okay, thank you, Marcus, for telling us your story.
Absolutely.
You guys, make sure you click on the Q&A tab. So that means Q&A should be black and not light gray, and then post your question. Remember, you have to press the send button. It's not like other chat features where you can just press enter. The first question comes from Robin, and she asks, Marcus, what is your favorite thing about invention?
So one of the things that I love the most about being innovative and inventing things is the opportunity to be able to take an idea out of my head and bring it somehow into fruition and allow people to react or respond. No matter what the response is, whether or not they love it, they hate it, this is crazy, but being able to help guide emotions by reactions from others out of something that came out of my head is super dope. And that's why I experiment with a lot of times with these businesses, because it allows me to be able to see how I can help try to figure out what my contribution is to the world. And some of them is just the initial reaction. And that's my favorite part about inventing things, is that initial reaction.
Right. And then Ryan Aubin asks, are you still hiring?
Ryan, I am hiring right now. So I'm hiring. Well, I just hired a marketing intern just now. I'm now hiring a back-end developer. So if the folks out there listening, you guys are at least a junior level to a senior level back-end programmer, I would love to have that conversation.
Okay. Natalia asks, how do you think Flikshop changed you as a person?
I think Flikshop, allowed me to be able to feel comfortable with wearing my past and my history on my chest proudly, right? I mean, well before Flikshop, I hid from my felony, right? I never wanted to tell anyone, and I left out a lot of the story around like how we built that construction business, but that construction business became pretty successful in the Washington, D.C. area. And the last thing that my clients, at least I thought that they wanted to hear, was the person that they just hired to do a $50,000 kitchen remodel had just spent, almost a decade in prison a few years prior. And that was a hard barrier I had to jump off. Is like that could issue a concern with my identity. And like, what is it that I was proud of and shameful about? And how was I going to articulate that to others? And would I ever be able to be proud of doing that? And so now today, I'm able to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I can wear this as like a badge of saying I messed up horribly. And I impacted a lot of lives, not just my own and my own family, but the victim of someone who may, look at shopping completely different from now on as a result of the decision I made in that shopping mall parking lot. So like now I'm like, yo, having Flikshop gives me the opportunity to be able to talk about that openly and deal with that kind of sort of that those issues I had earlier when like, am I ever going to talk about, the decisions I made early when I was a kid? So Flikshop gives me that.
Marcus, and the point you just made about, being proud about your identity, being someone who was formerly incarcerated. At MESA, we talk about equity a lot, right? And I think people who have been to prison, they have a bad rap, right? And I think you're definitely proof that, all people, especially incarcerated people, have something to offer the world, right? And that, it's awesome that your story shows us that not only connecting incarcerated people to family, but also helping formerly incarcerated people, acclimate back into the non-prison life. So.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for talking about that. One of the things that I'm hoping that I have the opportunity to be able to do, whether it be through this company, the press, the media, future businesses that I start, is to begin to help change that narrative that people in prison are like horrible people. But when I went to prison, I was in prison and was like, yo, it's nothing in here but a bunch of monsters, right? Until something happened over time where I'm like, yo, these are my brothers. They literally look just like me and they want the same exact things that I want. And then, so now everyone in prison became human to me. And now I fight tirelessly now to be like, yo, real talk, 600,000 people are coming home from jail every year. Some of them are my friends or cousins or brothers. And I promise you, they want to contribute to the world in very meaningful ways, the same way I do. And I want to be able to be one of the ones that help change that narrative. So thank you for pointing that out, Bianca.
Right. Mary Jane asks, did you imagine you would have ended up where you are today when you were in middle school? Did you think you'd be making apps and bringing people together like this?
Mary Jane is instant. So one, not like, what's funny about that question? I went to prison in 1996. There was no internet. I came home in 2004 and it was Google. Like the whole world changed, right? So that was the one. So I definitely didn't think. But I mean, I didn't know if I was going to be building technologies, right? Like when I got into prison, what was interesting is that sometimes people ask me like, what caused this? What was the differentiation between you and others that are in prison? I'm like, yo, I'm not really a unicorn or anomaly, right? Like it's really like a set of amazing circumstances that allow for me to be able to have this blessing. And all of us have these circumstances in our lives. And they all weave together to be able to create the awesomeness that we are. But one of mine was that, like, when I went to prison, I was a 16-year-old kid. I was super hungry. I wanted to learn more. And not because I just wanted to learn more, but because my brain was just, I was 15. I was like, I was in school every day. So I was already hungry and thirsty to learn more and absorb more. And so it allowed me to outpace everyone that was in a prison cell because no one wanted to read as much. I was accustomed to reading for 2 or 3 hours because I was in high school. I was like writing book reports. So I was accustomed to reading that way and they weren't. And so I just continued those and I continued to realize, like, if I continue this path of just wanting more and allowing myself to continue to want to outpace everyone else around me, because the gold standard is not being like everybody else. The gold standard is me figuring out how to separate myself, pull myself away, because now I finally got a one-up. The one-up that I have is that I'm younger than everyone else in the prison, and I want to learn more. And so I learned that, I figured out that I wanted more, and then eventually I got another sort of set of amazing circumstances as I enrolled inside of a computer class. And the computer class, wasn't even connected. The computers weren't even connected to the internet. They were just standalone computers that had software that you can play around with. but my desire to just want to learn how to stay around and play with software and see how I could break a computer, format it, and start all over again and see what the things that I did differently to be able to learn how to format. I was like, oh, this is dope. I ran across one piece of software, and this is where exposure is important. I ran across one piece of software where it talked about jobs you can get when you came home in colleges and universities that will allow you to be able to get the best jobs. And one of them had a long article about technology and how this one school that was leading technologies at the time was called Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That was my first introduction to what a tech school and people who wanted to be able to figure out how to create wonky things and change the world with it. It blew my mind that there were a bunch of other nerds and geeks out there that was like me. And I was like, yo, I just happen to be on the street corners, but I'm a nerd and a geek. For real, because I actually enjoy learning, and I enjoy being the one that everyone says he's smart. So how can I get there? That was the moment that I'm like, yo, I had this level of desire to want even more once I came home, and that started something.
Awesome. Thanks for asking that question, Mary Jane. That was a good question. Okay, next question is from Kyle Hansen, and Kyle asks, how did you build Flikshop and get recognition? Did you just try to start locally, then expand? How did you achieve reliability and trust with your company?
So when we first built Flikshop, I didn't have any bread to be able to like test against it. I spent all my money on development. I didn't realize, I was building technologies for iPhone, and we realized that our users weren't even finding us and using us on iPhone. They were using our web application. And then I realized that the majority of the people in our demographic that I should have been personifying and understanding who my real customer was, because if I did that, I would have spent a lot less money developing on iPhone first. And I would have built on Android because the most of our users use Androids. See, that's stuff that you won't know until you like jump in and really start your business. That's why I tell people you got to jump out the window and build your parachute while you're on your way down. I promise you won't go splat. And if you do, so what? Get up and do it all over again. While you have analysis paralysis and continuing to want to plan and build out your idea, I promise you there's someone right now in a garage right now trying to figure out how to be able to do what we have done and do it better, right? So while I'm waiting to have an analysis paralysis, someone else is winning. Which one you going to do? You're going to either win or you're going to plan. So we decided that we try to win. Now, what that meant for us along the journey was that like, you got to try to build something really, really quickly and spread out, as much as you can. Now, some people, what I'm learning now, and some people, it works for some people, others, it doesn't. One of the things I wish I would have been thoughtful about is having that sprinkler mentality, that sprinkler head mentality. Like you think of a sprinkler head in your house, right? Or in your school or something. If you pop that sprinkler head and water shoots out, it's going to go wide and far and try to be able to spray enough water to be able to blanket out the fire around. But that fire hydrant outside, if you pop that thing, it's a big gush of water that just explodes out of that fire hydrant. Now, what we did with Flikshop is we took the sprinkler head theory and we try to sprinkle ourselves wide across the whole entire United States and try to learn how to be able to get our technology improved in these prisons. It took us 3 years to be able to jump through that bureaucratic red tape, and it was a massive headache. Now, I had another business that I was working on the side, our construction company, that freed me up, that allowed me to have the income to be able to continue to support my journey while I was learning how to be able to build this new tech company. But now, as I continue to build out Flikshop, I'm learning how to be able to effectively take, especially most specifically, our marketing efforts. And instead of going sprinkling wide, we're popping that fire hydrant and going deep with our customers. Instead of saying, how can I get 100 customers? I ask myself, how can I get 5 customers? And how can I get them to love us? And how can I learn from them to make sure that not only can we get 5 more, but they'll be the brand ambassadors that will make it easier for us to get 7 and then 10 and then 12. And now we understand how to build a real business that continues to scale out, and we keep busting in the head with that fire hydrant versus trying to trickle around with the sprinkler head. Now, what we did, we had to be creative in our money and our budget because we didn't have a lot of cash to be able to spend, to be able to grow Flikshop. And so what I would do was I would go into prisons and I would teach free classes from talking about going from prison to entrepreneurship, because I had already started a successful construction business. When it got to the point, it was like, oh my gosh, so you got, I would volunteer. I would go to the prison wards. I'd be like, I would teach these classes free. I would come and talk to the people. You guys need positive reinforcement coming back into the prisons. I will teach these classes for free. They would give me about 50 guys, and the worst guys in the union. They would put them in a room, and I'd go in there and I would talk about my journey. And I would be authentic Marcus. That's the best part about being authentically and genuinely you. I would be authentic Marcus. I'm like, yeah, look, I used to be on the street corners, and I used to sell this, and I used to do that. But now I have done this, and now how we're thinking about this, and next we're building a technology, blah, blah, and it's called Flikshop. And they like, well, what's Flikshop? Oh, you've never heard of Flikshop? Well, we help your family members stay connected to you. They're like, what? They will run back to the phones. I don't know what this thing is, but apparently you can send me pictures of the kids now. It's only 99 cents. And so that allowed us to be able to build a marketing strategy that allowed for the people that are inside of prison to be our biggest sales reps. And it worked out well for us. Are you on mute, Bianca?
I was saying thank you to Kyle for that question. Great question. You guys are asking some really great questions out here. Yeah, let's see. Natalia asks, how do you think Flikshop changed you as a person?
Oh, I think we did that one.
Did we? Yeah. I think we did. Sorry. Marking it as answered. Okay. So, Abigail asks, how long did it take you to design the app?
So it's constant designing. The first pass at it, I think it took me maybe about 4 or 5 months to design the app. I knew the kind of sort of functionality that I wanted it to have, and I started to like just play through. If I wanted someone to click here, I wanted them to do this, then this is the screen that what it should look like. And then I'm like, oh man, but what happens if they click here? Then I'm like, I got to draw another screen, insert this screen here, and just move the screens on down until I finally got a straight path, which I learned later was called wireframing. But that's how I designed. I just literally just thought through what I wanted the user to do, and where I wanted them to land. And it took me a few months, maybe like 3 to 6 months.
Thank you, Abby. All right. Next question comes from Robin again. How long did it take you? Oh, I think I think it's a similar question, but it might be a little bit different. How long did it take you to launch the app?
Yeah, so to launch the app, it was different because I didn't really, I'm like, so this was 2012 and launching third-party apps was still very, very new to the app stores. And so there was a lot of like, a lot of guesswork. You know, I was doing a lot of Googling and a lot of YouTubing and learning how to like upload apps and like how to build apps. And so to launch it, like I said, we first started with the web application. We had our launch party and stuff planned. Like if you go to the oldest pictures on Flikshop's Facebook page, you'll see real pictures of the Flikshop launch party when we first launched the app. We paid for this massive venue, had a big launch party, and we couldn't even launch the app on time. So it was like, yo, we can't have a launch party and not have an app. I already paid the caterers, paid the photographers, all that kind of stuff. And so, which signals like, yo, it don't matter who you are. People have these kinds of issues. It doesn't matter. Like small business, large business, people run up into these barriers. It's all about how you try to attack them. And so that day of the launch party, I'm like, well, look, forget the apps. We aren't gonna be able to launch the apps. Let's make the website pretty enough to actually work and have functionality and just be enough to catch pictures. If people want to add a picture, if you want to text them, just catch in the background. We'll try to match them up later and get the postcards printed for people. Like we had a real duct tape and Elmer's glue solution that we had on launch day. And it just worked on flikshop.com. The apps were not ready and were not available on launch day. It took us like another 3 or 4 months to be able to launch the mobile app on iOS. But I told you we learned later on that we need an Android. So I had to hire some other additional developers, and it took us another 1.5 years to be able to launch the Android version. But it took us a long time to learn how to build technologies inside of this environment.
Thanks, Marcus. I just sent you all a pop-up. There's a link to the Flikshop website there. So if you're curious to, see what that looks like and maybe take a look at the app, there's a link there for you. Okay, so the next question in the Q&A comes from Sebastian. How did you feel when you were, actually the first question he asked was your life hard when you entered prison for 8 years?
So when I first entered prison, it wasn't. It wasn't because I was delusional. Like I didn't think that I was going to be in prison for 8 years. I literally lived in my own bubble, and my naivety probably was the thing that saved my life at the time. And had I known that I was actually going to have to do those 8 years, I probably would have sunk into immediate depression. And I don't know if I was mentally able to sustain that at the time. So that's one of the things that God did, is he saved my life by allowing me to be naive and delusional. And I mean, everything, like from arguments to beefs. I got into a fight, made my first fight maybe like 3 or 4 months after being in the jail. And it was like over some cookies or something. And then the crazy thing of it was that, like, I knew at that moment that from that time, like, my hands would keep me safe. I knew how to fight. I mean, I grew up, you know, in the DC area where boxing was big. Like, you know, even Martin Lawrence, the comedian, was a box. Like, boxing was big in DC. So I knew how to fight. And I knew my hands would keep me safe, but I wasn't prepared for the mental warfare that was like literally waking up every day and trying not to cry my eyes out in front of everybody, because then they would joke me, or they would think I was weak, or like my mom, you know, was like, she was going through it, or my friends were going to see a trip, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm going to commissary. Like, that was hard. That was the hardest part.
All right. Abby asks, since the creation of your app, have there been any other apps that have been made that are similar to your creation? If so, how do you deal with any of the competition that comes from it?
That is an incredible question, Abby. Thank you for that question. So there have been, we have maybe like 2 or 3 main competitors right now that are inside of our space. And one of them, they launched right around the same time we launched, and then the others have come behind us. Some of them have been better resourced than ours. Some of them, they're just like the ankle biters and trying to figure out how to get inside of space. The way that I think about it is, the business that we own is an impact-driven business, and we want to be able to keep families connected first. Like, so we measure success by the amount of impact that we have. I'm sorry for my dryer keep going off in the background. I got a lot of noise in my background going on. Sorry about that. But we wanted to be impact-driven first, and then revenue-driven second. And if we're doing a good job with delivering on impact, then it allows us to be able to build solutions that are more thoughtful and customer-centric versus thinking about the revenue that a lot of our competitors are really thinking about. And so that's how we attack the market. We try to find our differentiators, and we try to be authentic with ourselves and run the business without looking, in our peripherals to think, whether or not we're running a race. We're just looking like, we are here to dominate and change this space in this game, and hopefully the justice system forever. So that's how we approach the whole competition. Peace.
Great. So we have about 3 minutes left before we have to end the session. I'm going to drop a couple of other handouts in the, so you guys have them. But the next question for Marcus is, what's the most unexpected challenge you faced in launching your company?
So we'll do rapid fire on these so we can try to get them out. So the most unexpected challenge I faced was thinking that my hard work would outpace the perception of people that I needed support from. I thought that I could like outwork all of my failures, and the reality of it is that sometimes you just can't. So I have to have faith, and I have to be tenacious enough to know that what I'm doing right now, it may not impact what I see in front of me today. 6 months from now, my 6 months from now self will thank me for the grind today. So thank you so much for that question. Bianca, if it's cool with you, I'll go right to Ryan's question. How old do we have to be to get hired? We haven't even we haven't built a policy on age in hiring people quite yet. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that question. But if you're like really, really dope, and you know that you're like the hardest working person that you have met, and you know how to build incredible technologies, then you should find us and hit us up and make us understand why we should hire younger people. Sebastian, how did you feel when you were getting chased by the police? Scared to death. I was like, oh, I'm going down. It's going down. And you know what was crazy, Sebastian? For real, I wasn't even really scared of like the police, the prosecutor, judge, none of that stuff. To be honest, again, Sebastian, I was 15. In fact, I just turned 15. I just turned 15 maybe a couple of weeks prior, right? So I was like 14, just turning 15. You know what I was scared of? I was scared of my mom's. I'm like, yo, my mom going to kill me when she get found out what happened last night. It wasn't until I was like going to court when it was like, my lawyer was like, you have much bigger problems than your mother right now. So that's how I felt when I was getting chased by the police. It was scary.
So was that all of our questions? Let's see. I think so. Well, thank you, Marcus, so much for being here. I always love hearing you talk, love hearing your stories, and I'm glad that the students got an opportunity to meet you. You guys, in the handouts tab, there's a tab that's offers. So there's a link to Flikshop. There is Marcus's Instagram, and then also there's the link to the feedback form. Remember, every time you fill out the feedback form, you get entered into the raffle. So we really appreciate you being here today, Marcus.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. I hope to get any of you guys have any additional questions, feel free, hit me up on Instagram. If not, thank you guys so much for sharing space with me this evening.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And guys, remember we have a 10-minute break. So at 4:25 is the Designing to Save the Planet session. Okay. And if you guys have any trouble, let us know. All right. Thanks, Marcus.
See you guys. Have a good evening.